Okay. Okay, I think we can get started. All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Want to get started? So with us this morning is Dr. Duane Williams. He is the Associate Vice Provost, that's what they call him in the US, of Success and Student Retention at Texas A&M in San Antonio. In his role, he oversees undergraduates, academic advisement, the Student Academic Success Center, first-year experience, and other student success-related initiatives within the Division of Academic Affairs and the Office of Provost. In his role, Dr. Williams works collaboratively with other university divisions, academic leadership, and various campus units to develop, implement, and evaluate student success initiatives. Before going to Texas A&M, he served in several directorship roles at Montclair State University in New Jersey. Specifically, he served in the Office of Student Belonging. Never heard of that before, Office of Student Belonging. In the Center for Leadership and Engagement and in the Office of Academic Success and Retention Programs. In this role, he spearheaded a broad range of programs and activities that supported students' transitional experiences and fostered a sense of belonging. These included multiple areas such as first-year student orientations, first-gen initiatives, international student support services, veteran and military student certification, adults and transfer student programs, advising and engagement initiatives, and an array of leadership development experiences. Before Montclair State University, Dr. Williams had served as a director in the Center of Advisement and Student Success at Hudson County Community College in New Jersey. There, he was able to develop a comprehensive understanding of the non-traditional and first-gen student population, and he's a first-gen student himself. He has enjoyed working on these initiatives that directly and indirectly affect the success and retention of students during their time here at college and university. With a formal management and public admin background, Dr. Williams has utilized his organizational leadership skills to support and create policies and practices that affect student development and ultimately student success. So he's earned his PhD in Family Science and Human Development at Montclair State University. So he is a son of the soil, and it just so happened that we met when I was at a conference related to student success. And so he is passionate about wanting to help us on our journey to see how we can, enhance the student experience. And so I am going to hand over to you. Oh, we didn't check if you are able to share your slides. Can we go ahead and do that just to make sure that it is well?
Let me know. You can see. Can you see it?
Yes, we can, but we're no longer able to see you, and my usual technical support is not here this morning. But what's that? How to get to see him on the slide on the screen. Okay, thank you, Dr. Donna. And we do have with us our deputy principal, who is very, very integral in the student success initiative and in the student success programs that we want to implement and roll out here at the University of the West Indies. So very good to have you, sir. Welcome to the chemistry department. Very good to have you. Okay, so you can go ahead, Dr. Williams. Thank you very much.
Well, first, thank you for that riveting introduction. I had to sit and really.
One moment.
Can you hear me?
Not too loudly. I thought we had turned up the volume.
I know, technology, right?
It's on.
The laptop itself.
How we gonna?
Go to audio settings and see if it have volume there.
All right. Okay, let's put it to the max.
Testing, testing. Are you able to hear me? It's just low.
Speak again.
Testing, testing. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
That's that max.
One, the light isn't on. Or are they connected?
I think they're connected.
Huh?
I think they're connected. Okay. All right. Let's go again.
Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Is that better?
Yeah, you can go with that now. All right. Thank you.
Okay. And can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. It is certainly a pleasure and a full circle moment for me to be here. I definitely wish and hope that I can be a part of your journey as you look to support student success initiatives. I do travel back home frequently, and so I would love the opportunity to visit campus officially. I visited campus unofficially. Should I continue? Are you all still able to hear?
One moment, Dr. Williams.
No
The volume
problem.
is still not ideal. Go again, go again.
Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
You're frozen. So we're going to ask you to unshare and let's start again.
Okay.
Oh, you're moving now. You're moving now.
You're moving.
I'm not sure if it's the internet.
Okay.
But
So
we are hearing you now, and we are now starting. Yes.
All
you're
right.
moving on
Okay.
the screen. So if you can go ahead, fast.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and keep the show going. So I want to first let you know a little bit more about me. I don't know if this school still exists, but I went to Southern Mare Preparatory. Then I attended Trafalgar Prep, which I don't know if these schools still exist, but these were my formative years. Are you hearing me? Are you able to hear me?
Still not as loudly as we'd like. They're hearing online, okay.
Yeah, I'm sure the
We in
online.
the room.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me pause.
Everyone can just gather around the computer. We'll have a close meeting.
Try again. Try again.
Testing, testing. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
I don't hear any lights.
That's not how it works. Also just all right, so maybe I have to switch to speak first from that to try again.
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Are we now in good standing?
No.
We're good? Okay. So I was just giving you a spread of my experiences from a education standpoint. So after I attended Trafalgar, I went on to St. Richard's Primary, which was near where I lived. And from there, I attended Woolmer's Boys School. So to any Woolmerians or not, this was where I attended school when I was in Jamaica. We're good or no? We're going in and out? Good. Okay. From there, I migrated to the United States, and this was in 1998. And so I went to New Jersey, where I attended a community college called Union County College, Union College of New Jersey. From there, I transferred and earned my bachelor's and master's at Kane University, and this is all in New Jersey, where I subsequently finished my educational studies with a PhD in family science at Montclair State, of which I actually worked there. And so I spent my entire career as a student and then eventually working in the higher ed spectrum. And so there are a lot of things that I think I have experienced and seen that may be helpful to you all. And I just want to give the disclaimer that my goal here is not to solve any issues. It's really to give or spark curiosity. You will certainly have access to me beyond today. And so I hope that we can continue to have dialogue, because the goal here with regards to student success is an iterative, continuous movement. In my current role, we have challenges every single day, but we're working towards different solutions. And so maybe my folks online will be able to participate more. I'm not sure. I would love to be able to have everyone participate. But I wanted to start out really quickly with a couple of thought processes. And so I'm sharing some clips here, which if I could have a participant tell me what they see depicted in that picture with the man shouting "boat." That would be helpful. So I don't know if you want to start with the online folks, if you can unmute and maybe tell me what you're seeing.
It's a mirage.
A mirage. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we have one person saying boat, the other person saying a land. What are you seeing, Jason? Go ahead, Claudia.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking it's a mirage as well.
Okay. So it's interesting because on one hand, one person is saying a boat and they're saved. And on the other hand, that the other person is saying, I see land and I'm saved. Let's jump to the face on the lower left corner. What are folks seeing?
Looks like pride to me. To me, pride.
Pardon me?
Image looks like pride. Pride to me. Pride.
Pride.
Mhm.
Okay. Does anyone see an Eskimo? No, when I saw this at first, I only saw a lady, what appears to be a lady, until someone pointed out that right here, if you see the cursor, this is the hood of the Eskimo. And I never saw it like that before until the person mentioned it. And then if you look at the other picture, what do folks see? This one here, the one in the center, lower center.
Woman's face looking away.
But there's an
Okay.
old woman there as well.
There's an old woman, or there is a young lady with a bonnet on her head. And this is the back of her, this is her face, and then this is the back of her head with the bonnet. And so again, I never saw the young woman with the bonnet. I saw the old lady until someone pointed it out. One more. And by the way, I don't know if I can see the folks in the room. I know the camera was turned at one point, but it turned back to the actual classroom front. But one more. And so this here, is this young lady larger than this image here, or is the image larger than the young lady?
The image is way larger than the young lady.
Okay, that's correct. So that's one of my daughters. I have two daughters, and so this is Pasha. This is in Mexico at Chichen Itza. And so they this is we took a trip and they have you stand up and it appears as if it's larger, but yes, it appears that she's larger, but she's not. And the whole idea here is that we see things from different lens. And I think in your mission in terms of student success, I don't know where you are in your journey, but I think it's important for you all to have discussions to make sure that you're aligned and seeing the same things. I've said to my staff members at one point that framing the issue is probably just as important as the issue itself. And so while this exercise here may not seem like it's connected, I think it drives home the fact that we all see the world and experience it different. And so as you enter into your different phase of your student success journey, I think it's extremely important to have a common goal and a common understanding of what student success is, because it really looks different for each institution, for each department, and for your leadership. Now, I'm going to really be covering a couple of things. I know we have a limited amount of time. So if you have questions beyond this meeting, I will certainly share my information. And like I said, you can reach out to me directly after, and I hope to continue the conversation. But I want to look at four main things: the baseline in terms of why do students leave if they leave, the retention framework that I've adopted, and again, some of these things are going to be from the perspective of the United States. I do recognize that Jamaica may have a different approach. Even the terminologies are different. When I was looking at your website and I saw faculties, you know, here we would be saying academic colleges or units, and you know, I report to the provost, which in Jamaica that might be the principal or deputy principal, from what I gather. So, if you hear me say something and you're not sure, let me know, because I also had to do an adjustment in understanding the vernacular. Even though I'm from Jamaica, I never had the luxury of attending the University of West Indies, although I was born up at UWI, just as a FYI. So I am from the area. So these are the areas that I'm going to be covering. I'll look at some key metrics, and then I'll end with what I call a holistic collaborative approach. So why do students leave? There are three main things that I've experienced, which you may be able to attest to. And these three things ring true no matter what the institution. First is, or not first, but one of the three includes their academic proficiency. So how well are they actually doing in their courses, in the program that they're enrolled in? Two, financial affordability. If you can't afford to be there, you may not be able to continue. And three, their sense of community. These three things, or these three ingredients, all comprise what I believe are the elements of why students will stay or leave an institution. Now, as it relates to what you're experiencing, this is the chemistry department lecturers only, correct? Right. And so when I work closely with a variety of faculty across all disciplines, but irrespective of the discipline, the student experience is a student experience. It doesn't matter what area you're in, there are some commonalities. And so really looking at each of these areas and figuring out, how do we support students academically in the class? How do we make sure that they're connected to the institution and feel that sense of connection? And third, how do we help students who financially are struggling? You know, some students may be able to afford it or figure it out, but others may not. So this is a framework that I developed in part and parcel throughout my career, but at the center of this is students, right? And this framework is applicable anywhere. You'll see surrounded by the student a variety of experiences. I have first year and transfer experience, which I'll get into some of these. Competency development, which I know from your strategic plan, what employers are asking for. really talking about integrated services. I'm not sure how siloed, if at all, your campus is, but really understanding, are we a siloed campus or are we really integrated? We may know folks from across the aisle, but do we really help the students from an integrated perspective? And then creating what I call vertically integrated pathways. And so really thinking about when students graduate, where they're heading, but working backwards and understanding what are the key qualities of those students who graduated, went into the workforce, and what was their time like while they were at the University of West Indies. And then culture of inescapable engagement. Inescapable engagement is a term that I'm not going to say I coined it, but at the same time, I heard it probably 15 years ago when I was in the community college arena. And it really speaks to creating experiences that students need, but if you give them the option, they may not choose it. It's like my kids; they don't eat their greens or their veggies, but I put it in a smoothie and mix it up and give it to them, and they're no wiser. And I call that inescapable eating. So really talking about really creating that culture of inescapable engagement. And then what you'll see surrounded by all of this are data awareness, really creating a sense of belonging, faculty development, and pedagogical approaches, and really policy that drives all of this. These are all factors that I believe and know to affect students in different ways. And then at the bottom, you'll see a strategic plan and historical period and context, because as we all experience the pandemic, we realize that time and place is key. But what drives all of this should be your university's strategic plan. Now, I took a look at your strategic plan, the AAA framework, and I was, wanting to understand where you all are. I think I asked faculty, I asked staff members, down to the folks who are in the bursar's office, how is your work connected to the university's strategic plan? And if you cannot answer that question, that in and of itself speaks to a potential issue, because the why and what we do is very important for everyone to understand. And so as I was looking at your strategic plan, and I'm not sure where you are in it, it's something that should continually evolve, but it should be at the center of how you allocate your resources. And so when I was looking at the core values, the student-centeredness jumped out because you all are, on your journey of student success. And I thought that was timely and appropriately placed, because as you develop your programs and initiatives, you should always link it back to the strategic plan. And then I was looking at the key attributes that you wanted all students to graduate and have achieved. And how do you actually get to having students achieve these things? We put these things on paper, but the question is how do we operationalize elements of a strategic plan? And so, am I correct that this is your current strategic plan, right? Which ends in 2027, from what I gathered. See, I did my little research. I don't just come unprepared, all right? That's how we have to operate. And so I'm going to say this, and this is me comparing what I know of the United States. When I looked at some of the outcomes, you all are doing comparatively fine on the surface. I don't know what's going on beneath the surface, but when I looked, and you could tell me if some of these things don't seem correct, but I gathered this from your academic portrait of students. And so some of the key things that jumped out to me, your enrollment number, that really didn't faze me. That seems fine. The female to male comparison, I think that is true even in the United States here. We have less males attending. The 88% of your students being 24 years or under, I think was fairly average and synonymous with what we see here. Your 1-year retention over 3 years that I looked was at 76%. I think at optimal level, that number is generally 85 to 90%. And so I think if you're striving to improve that number, then you're talking about, really striving for a minimum of 85%. Now, I'll say this, my university is not there, which speaks to the context of the environment. Your graduation rates, they seem fairly in line with what I was seeing. And then I was looking at, irrespective of these, what I would deem to be fairly commendable outcomes, the industry needs were still not being met based on the employer feedback, which is something we're seeing here. And so I think this speaks to the generational effect. It doesn't matter if you're in Jamaica or if you're in the United States or if you're in Europe, the generational impact is something that is synonymous across the world, in my opinion. And so what do I mean by that? I'm talking about the students who are growing up in a more sheltered society, who are growing up with technology at the tip of their fingers, and the types of skill-based or competency-based the competencies that are needed that are not necessarily seen upon graduation. And maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago, individuals who graduated would naturally have some of these skill sets because of the environment. However, the environment shapes who we are. And I can say that we see the same thing here, where students are graduating and according to what is called the NACE career competencies, which you can look it up, just put this, NACE. Their career competence is what drives a lot of what institutions do here. And so this mimics some of that. And the question is, how do you ensure that students have these skill sets upon graduation? So that's part of what I would like to focus on. Now, some key things, which some of this you already have. I didn't find anything about first gen students. I'm not sure if that's a moniker that's utilized heavily on your campus. But that also, and Dr. Gallimore is I don't know if you know from your end, but in terms of first generation college students, is that a thing at the University of West Indies?
Yes.
It is.
Who's that? I can't hear. I don't know who's speaking, but somebody said it.
That was Jason McKenzie, who is the head of student services and development.
Okay, all right. So that would be my folks that I'll be working with. So you said it is confidently. And the thing is, you know, I had to think about first gen, but from a Jamaican perspective. And I was thinking of whether you came from the rural areas. You know, my parents are from St. Elizabeth, and there's a very different environment. I grew up in Kingston, St. Andrew area, but I had a very different experience from my cousins who grew up in the rural areas. And so I haven't fully thought through what that would look like from a Jamaican lens, but I thought it was a group of students who would be different from probably the traditional. Did someone have their hand? Peter Gay? Did Peter Gay ever? I thought I heard somebody.
Turn it off.
Okay, I'll continue. And so I think that's an important facet and group of students to look at. The other things are, you may have your persistence rates, your graduation rates, and the question more is, what do you actually do with those? Who's responsible for monitoring and implementing action plans based on how you're performing? And I don't know the answers to these. These are just general things that I'm looking at that I know I question, and I have to be accountable for some of these things, whether it's with our university's president or a provost or just constituents in general. The other thing is, when you talk about key metrics and what some of the things I'm doing, we have early alert and midterm alerts. Now, I'll say that we have the resources to have systems that allow us to do these things. And so our early alert and our midterm alert is really focused on helping us understanding who are the students that are struggling at any given point in the semester. And the struggle is not just academically. It could be students who live on campus, who are having difficulty adjusting to college life, and they're not performing well, but the faculty member or the lecturer indicates or raises a flag, so to speak. And so these early alert campaigns happen on every term, at the beginning of the term, first 2 weeks of class, and then about 4 weeks 4 to 6. This is separate from the midterm alert. The midterm alert is where at the midpoint of the semester, faculty members can input how students are performing based on the grade. And so from that process, we put students in buckets, if you will. And those buckets allow us to target who actually is not doing well at that point that need intervention. We also look at courses with high DFW. That's a huge piece. And then we look at where students are not able to successfully complete a course, or there's not enough sections available. These are all facets of student success. It really varies. And then the time to a degree. Where I am in Texas, students were taking 6.5 years to graduate, just based on previous data. And when we looked at the why behind it, it was interesting. It was really about their pace or their momentum. And by that, I mean how many courses they're taking per semester and what that translated to over a course of 4, 5, or 6 years. I know I looked at your 5th year graduation rates. And again, I think you all have to decide what is your baseline? What is your benchmark? What is your goal that you're working towards? Now, the holistic collaborative approach is what I was mentioning. And really, this really seeks to create synergy amongst areas. I know I'm speaking to the chemistry folks, and I don't know to what degree the student services or student development folks collaborate across departments. I think one of the things that I found impactful is when there's an intentional collaboration across different areas on different initiatives, because it helps the different area understand from a different point of view the operations of another area, but 2, it creates a synergy that trickles down to the student. And so this approach is something that I've pushed with my folks. And as Dr. Gallimore mentioned, I oversee 3 primary areas: advising, academic support, and first year experience. And prior to me arriving, those areas really did things, quote unquote, in a siloed manner. And I had to kind of institute or implement this culture where they did collaborate with each other for at least 1 to 2 initiatives per semester, just to get that ball going. And so the 3 areas that I think are impactful under this approach is inescapable opportunities, moving beyond access and affordability, and really creating a culture of care. Now, what do I mean by that? So I kind of hinted at this inescapable engagement. All right. Now, I don't know if Jamaican students, and by Jamaican, I mean the University of the West Indies, but students in general don't do optional for me. And so the question is, how do I ensure that you're getting what I know you need? And so our first year experience, which is a dovetail from orientation, and I don't know, again, what your orientation looks like, but I see our first year experience office and our first year, we have a first year seminar course. It's a 3-credit course that really helps the student through a process of self-discovery and self-awareness. So that's in their first term here. I would say probably about 90% of our incoming class take that one course in that first term. And so that first semester and first year, we really try to understand the student and have the student understand him or herself. And so the opportunities and the engagement that we curate in that space are built into the curriculum. And so when you talk about understanding what are your interests, a lot of students leave our high school system not really exploring what they're passionate about, understanding what career field they're looking to go into. We really use that first semester and first year as a clearinghouse, if you will. And we utilize peer support to drive a lot of this, because they'll not listen to me. They like my fashion when I walk around school and when I visit the classes, but they really listen to their peers more than ever. So we deploy peers in each of our first year seminar courses. Now our incoming class is about 1,200. And so we have about 30 sections, capped at about 25 to 30. And each first year seminar has a peer support or a peer mentor. And so this is an upper class student. It can be a volunteer, but it certainly bodes well if you're able to pay them. And that's one one quick plug. A lot of these initiatives that I oversee involve financial resources, but they also can be done on a volunteer basis. So I would suggest that you start small, you build capacity, and you demonstrate its efficacy, and then you can ask for funding from your whomever it is, you know, the deputy principal or other for funding. But you have to be able to demonstrate the impact of whatever program you're running. The other part is creating milestone experiences beyond the first year. And this goes to the competencies that your students or the employers are saying that students still lack. And so the question is, how do you actually provide this for them? Now, my thought is that whether it's leadership development, whether it's critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, there are different experiences that your students will have throughout their time there. And the question is, how are you capturing these elements, these experiences? And so I thought that a milestone experience where by the end of your second year, you know, it's a goal within the department, within the division, or within your area, your faculty, that students have at least one experience in X. And that, again, those are left to you to decide. But these milestone experiences allow what I would say are a scaffolding of experiences that will lead to students having the necessary competencies by the time they hit, you know, years 4 or 5. The other piece, by the way, I'm not seeing anyone. I'm seeing yellow flowers, which is fine, but I'd love to see your faces. The third, there we go. The third thing is academic support. Now, I don't know who oversees like tutoring. Is there anyone here that oversees tutoring? Is it Jason?
Hi, good morning. That would be me. I am the program manager for the academic support unit. So part of my job involves providing some tutoring resources for students as well.
Okay. Nice to meet you, Cindy. Will it go back to the audience? Anyway, you all will take care of that. So the academic support is also an area that I oversee. So tutoring and supplemental instruction. Now our tutoring, we have in person, but we also have online. And in terms of student participation, going back to what I say, students don't do optional. And so what we've done is we've looked at the areas, the pain points, the courses that have the highest D's, F's, and W's. I don't know how you refer to it, but we say high DFW courses. And so we embed or work with faculty members, lecturers to have those courses somewhat require students to participate in tutoring because we know it's a high DFW course. And so that's one arm. The other arm is supplemental instruction, where we actually place a tutor in the class. And that student it's an upper class student who will meet with students from the class outside of the classroom time. And so we found that students who attend our SI, we call them SI sessions, 3 or 4 or more times for the term have an increase in their grade letter by 1. And so we're able to demonstrate its efficacy and how it actually impacts the student. And I think that is critical for stakeholders to know that how they're spending their money, their resources, that there's a return on investment from that perspective. And for students, it's for them to recognize that, listen, there will be elements of this college experience that's rigorous, and we have the necessary support systems. But again, students don't do optional. The fourth is experiential learning opportunities embedded within the academic discipline or faculty. And so, you know, at some institutions, they will require that every single student by a certain point has an internship or experiential learning opportunity. And when I say experiential learning opportunity, I'm saying whether that's research with faculty, whether that's an internship, whether that's service learning or project-based experiences. Anytime a student can have time with faculty or they're actually doing work, they're in the field, it is so impactful. And I think those will lead to the competences that the employers are saying, hey, they're graduating. We know that they have the 3.6 or the 4.0, but they're still lacking these other skill sets that are in demand. And I think that's how you start to move the needle towards that. Now, beyond access and affordability, I can't see you all, by the way. Beyond access and affordability, I say this because I think it's one thing to admit students to a university and say, here's what it costs to attend. But how do you support students and help them develop into citizens of Jamaica, in this case, citizens of the world, who are going to contribute positively? And so the support structure, I think, is equally important, as we know that for me, I could say, you know, if it wasn't for education, I probably wouldn't be here. It has certainly opened up a ton of doors for me, and now I can impact not only my own kids, but others. And so once students are at the university, in my university at least, we have academic coaches and retention specialists. So these are folks who really focus on some of those skill sets that employers were talking about. But they also focus and work helping students develop study skills or test taking skills, or if you have anxiety management. So, you know, again, going back to the students who are not, who are first gen, who, you know, for them, this college experience it could be intimidating. They may not have the family support in the form of the academic support. They may have the social and emotional support, but not necessarily academic. And so we've had academic coaches to help in that spectrum. These coaches also serve, and the retention specialists serve as individuals who look at our student population and determine the students who are not engaged at a very early point. I mentioned the early alert earlier. These are the folks that actually do outreach to students who are flagged as being on having a negative flag or needing some kind of outreach. And so we have a tool that really looks at our student engagement. And now I don't know what learning management tool you use. So here in the States, we have Canvas, we have Blackboard. What do you all use as your learning management system, if any? I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Moodle platform.
Moodle platform. Okay. So say Moodle platform was able to show you within a week or two the types of activities students are having or not. That is an indicator of the student being either engaged or not engaged. And so we're able to see low engagement. And with that information, the academic coaches, retention specialists, they'll develop different outreach tactics to say, hey, we notice, you know, is everything okay? Or we try to connect them to resources. So that's one group. The other group is our academic advisors, career advisors, and financial advisors. Now, at one university in our A&M system, they actually have these three folks. So you have an academic advisor, a career advisor, and a financial aid advisor, all in the same area and assigned to each student. So imagine having, like, you go to the doctor and you have someone working on your physical health, you have another one working on your diet and your food, and you have another one working on something else, who knows? But it's a team that's there to support you. Well, think of that, but from the academic side, how impactful that is. If the student has a question, they have a dedicated person who will answer all the academic advising pieces. Then as they're going through their college career and trying to think through what will my career be, they have a career advisor throughout their entire time. And then as they go through those hurdles regarding financial, you know, financing this investment, they have a financial advisor. So that approach is used at one system. For us, we have these folks, but they're scattered. And so if I were to have the perfect world, I would have a team. These areas actually operate within the same entity or within the same house, if you will. So that really is now talking about a shared governance of student engagement. And I get that, you know, this is exclusive to our chemistry folks, but I do think a lot of what I'm mentioning is applicable in any area and across many divisions. So that brings me to the third part, which is how do you create this culture? And what you're seeing here is this book I just read, I met the author. So relationship rich education is an approach which you might actually have elements of this, but you don't call it a relationship rich culture. I met one of the authors, Dr. Leo Lambert. He was a former president of Elon University. He came here, we brought him here as a speaker, and he co-authored this book. And there's a student version, which is free. I'll send it to you, Dr. Gallimore. One of the powerful and free things is reading. I love reading. I'm a lifelong learner. And I found this to be very refreshing because I felt as if this was something that I embodied and other folks embodied, but we just didn't name it. And so I think this is actually one of the foundational pieces in your journey, really looking at who are the stakeholders, who are the committed ones, the folks here. I don't know if you were voluntold or you just showed up because you wanted to hear from this guy in the States who apparently is Jamaican. I don't know what your reason is. Whatever brought you here, you're here today. And I think relationships are key. One of my strong qualities is developing and maintaining relationships. That's how I get a lot of work done. That's how I help students. When they come to me with an issue, I'm able to lean over to my friend and ask for help. But it really speaks about a couple things. And I took a little excerpt of 6 out of 10 recommendations. As I stated here, it's free, but it does require commitment. And so the classroom is the main place where a student is. It's one of the first places where they'll be. And if you have students coming into the chemistry program, what is your first interaction with those students? Who are they connected with from the department that makes them feel like, okay, I've made the right choice. Even though I'm not, I might have fears and trepidations, I feel as if I have a community to support me. So the classrooms are key. And I know you have a whole center dedicated to teaching and learning. I think that area is going to be key. I cannot tell you how many folks I've seen graduate with all these degrees and they're experts in their discipline, but they do not know how to transmute or translate that to students, which is key. And so it's one thing to have the PhDs or whatever doctorate degrees or terminal degrees you have, but how are you able to know impart knowledge onto these young minds? And I think investing more, because I know you have it, but ensuring that that is a focal area, because your students are interacting with the faculty members. And aside from the content of the courses, they are going to learn about the field. They are going to learn about different life experiences from faculty members. So the classroom is key. It's where instill is belief, or where belief is built, so to speak. The other thing is mentorship. You all as whether you're a lecturer or whether you're a staff member, I do think adopting and having a mentor program, volunteer across campus, where individuals who may have industry experience, so if you worked outside of the University of the West Indies and you want to take on 2 or 3 mentees for first-year students who are looking to go in that field, I think that's a simple, I've seen it done, Excel spreadsheet. We put this out. Hey, you want to be matched with a mentor? Here's the list of folks you can reach out. These are simple tactical things to do that don't require money, but they do require time. And I think you'll start to see what I'm describing here, or what is described in this book, as relationship-rich education. Mentorship was a huge part of my research. And so I see this as a critical element, not only in the academic space, but in the workforce space. And then looking at building blocks. When I scanned your website, again, I think you all have a lot of positives. It's really just looking at what you have and repackaging what you have to meet your needs. Sounds easy. I know I'm oversimplifying it, but it can be done. And then the last 2 are stories. I told you a little bit about who I am. One of the main things I do when I interact with any audience is really having folks understand just who I am as Duane, not Dr. Williams, but just Duane, because it really creates that connection. It creates an avenue for conversation. And for students, that is so impactful when they can see me beyond the suit and the ties and just see me as another individual to support them. I think the more we share our stories, then that also opens up other avenues for student success to shine. And then last but not least, transforming lives. Learning, this is a quote from the book where it says, learning at its heart is a relational process. And so the relationships that you have across campus, the relationships you have with your upper administration, the relationships you have with the custodians, the relationships you have with the folks, tending to the surroundings, all matter. And so some of the final considerations are, I have a retention steering committee that I lead, and this retention steering committee is like a think tank. It's comprised of faculty. It's comprised of some of the student development folks. It's comprised of students themselves. It's comprised of the dean of students. So it really is reflective. It's comprised of the person, the equivalent of your Center for Teaching and Learning. And it's really so we can get a pulse on what is happening across the university. And so if you think of not having isolation, then having a student success team that meets, regularly once a month to really discuss pain points, I think is a good strategy. The other piece is about the outside the classroom curriculum, which you may have. I don't know how you track it, but I think documenting and being able to show students what they're gaining throughout their experience is going to be key, especially when you're trying to help them understand the skill sets they've gained to make them marketable. And then lastly, and this one I think is not novel, but we're attempting this here. So, we're in the AI world, and we have an AI fellow, and we just made a pitch to the provost where if faculty go through, let's say that your teaching and learning area, and they become AI credentialed, and they impart elements of AI learning within their course can be designated as an AI course, meaning students who go through that course, the curriculum doesn't change, but the elements of it and how they interact with AI is utilized in that course. And so as a student goes through their different disciplines or faculties, upon graduation, you can start saying, hey, you have experience with AI, you have experience with critical thinking, you have experience with problem solving. And these are things that they would have gained in the classroom space through their different student learning activities and outcomes as a way to document and articulate to the student what they're gaining outside of just the degree itself. And these are things that can be driven by the lecturers who are innovative and willing to try something outside of the box. Now, the last thing, this is my last slide because we're right at time. Anyone know the story of the Chinese bamboo? I know this is Holland bamboo, just so you know, because I have to keep it Jamaican, but anyone know the story about the Chinese bamboo? And if you don't, I'll just tell you. If you do, then sit tight. So with the Chinese bamboo, you'll plant the seed and you'll begin watering it. And after year 1, nothing happens. You keep watering it. Year 2 goes by and nothing happens. Year 3, year 4, year 5, you have to keep watering it. Around year 5, in about 60 days, that bamboo plant will grow as tall as some of these that you're seeing here on the screen. And so the question is, did that bamboo plant grow in 60 days or 5 years and 60 days? That's my question to you. You said 5 years? Exactly. Yes. It grew in 5 years. And so even though you don't see the outcome of your efforts, and I'm speaking to the students who go in and out of your classroom, who graduate and move on, you may not necessarily know the full story. You keep watering because eventually that seed will mature and grow. And I think that's a good representation of the work that you're attempting to do, because a lot of times you don't see the outcome or the impact of what you do. If you're fortunate enough, you may hear stories, someone may mention you, or someone may come and visit you and tell you what impact you've had. And so I think this work is one where you do it, not necessarily knowing or seeing when the results will come, but knowing that the results will come. And so I think that kind of sums up, I'm gonna stop sharing, sums up my presentation. This is not the end, this is just the beginning. And I hope you took something away from my conversation.
Okay, some questions. Okay, before that, one thing you pointed out was the early alert system. And yes, we do have a new platform. We actually were having a discussion in recent times about it. But to be honest, I have not done that type of work. You know, and it comes down to is the lecturer going to be the owner of that? Is the lecturer going to be the one who's going to be responsible to go and check Moodle to ensure that your students are going online? And if they aren't, whose responsibility is that going to be to follow up on them? You know, so that was one of the things that came out to me when you were speaking.
So real quick, the question really is, if a student is not doing well at any point in the semester, you know, the faculty will be the first person to know, right? Whether they're not showing up to class or their actual academic proficiency is questionable. So then the question is, how do you communicate that to the appropriate individuals who can support? And if you have a student development team or some kind of support team, it's centralizing that information and then saying, hey, student X, if I check this off, that means something is awry. I'm using the basics, meaning you can create shared documents where I just say, these are of these 5 students in week 2, of these 20 students in week 2, here are 5 that I think need some outreach. Then the other team takes over and does outreach. I think you can start small. You can test it out with maybe a couple of, you know, lecturers. It doesn't have to be this gigantuous task, you know, start small and build up.
Anything in the chat? Okay, I will check in the chat.
I don't see anything in the chat. I'm looking right now.
Okay.
I have some things I want to say, but I will go, I think, so that you can move the arrow, you're not seeing any hands up? No. No? Okay. So, Duane, thank you so much for your presentation. You have said a number of things that all of us here, are you hearing me?
I'm hearing, but I have to like put my, so yeah, I'm hearing you.
Yeah.
She's moving closer.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you said a number of things that all of us here agree with and in fact know already, right? And the thing about us here in the Caribbean. All right. The thing about us here in the Caribbean, and in fact, in all of us near and below the equator have similar challenges. Many of the things you talk about require a lot of resources. And you said something about using these predictive and analytic tools to focus resources. Maybe our problem is that we haven't decided how crucial this kind of student engagement, this kind of you call it an environment of care. I don't know. I like the word care, teams, and yeah, I love it. I love the word. But we know these things. We've had a first year experience, and I'm saying this, Duane, so that you understand how our context some more. Because when you look on our website and look at what we're saying out there to the public, we look good.
Right.
But I am not into doing anything for image, and I love that the deputy principal and Jason is here. I see Jason's hand up, and Jason and I have had these discussions for a long time. We look good in the things we say.
Right.
But I don't know if it's institutional inertia or it's just institutional paralysis or what is it, but there's something going on at the institutional level, and we seem to be going backward. The first year experience program was in a different form, right, Jason? Right, everybody? When it was designed by one of our chemistry professors, Professor Yvette Jackson. You know, it was more immersive. We had students engaged in this experiential learning and mentorship, going out to do projects in the community. I remember going to paint and cook out and whatever all over this country with my first year students. And now I think it's online. I don't know if that has changed. It's resources, we say, but yet when we engage students and deal with that student engagement, we also increase our registration, our image, become more of a global university that we want to be, and make money too.
Right.
Good? So we have to decide, as you said, on this focus. The other thing, I have many things I want to say when I end it with this one. This business of the care teams and the support systems, we no longer, and I'm talking about chemistry now, a lot of things come to the lecturer to do, and we just can't do it all, especially when we do have these courses with very high failure rates. We meet in examiners meetings and all these things, and we talk about what needs to be done. We don't do anything and we're going backward because we used to have TAs, tutorial assistants who support the lecturers. Many universities now with online platforms have office hours online on the weekend. My son just told me Saturday. He can't speak to me right now because he's going to office hours. I say, on Saturday, yes. And then he jump out and he goes back in, and he goes on Sunday too because the TAs are available to the students. We used to have, we don't have anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, so just giving you some context and saying to Dr. Paul who's here that we need to use the analytics to focus the resources.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. And I'll say this, we have a president that he will support and has supported different initiatives. I also look out external. I have a U.S. Department of Ed grant. And so in my case, where the institution is growing and resources are not here, I look for external funding. And then critically, it's demonstrating that what we're doing works. I think you have to show that what we're doing works, and then you can make the argument or make the justification for why you need to invest more into this. And so if the things that you described, the culture, the feel, if that is going to be the tipping point for University of Western is going to the next level, then I think you have to be able to demonstrate that. So I hear you. And again, I'll say this, I'm available and will make myself available to talk one-on-one so we can kind of get into the weeds. This was just not the time or place. But the luxury is that I am from here, and this for me is like giving back to my home country and to my colleagues. So I'm certainly open to that. I know I saw a hand in here, and then I saw another hand in the audience. So I don't know who was first.
Jason, you can go ahead.
Thanks, Winkler. Thanks, Dr. Williams, for your presentation. Lots of insight. I would say around same. And as Marvadine spoke just now, there are a number of things that you speak of that we are engaged in. The context is certainly different in a number of ways, and I look forward to the offer of us engaging one-on-one to deepen the dialogue and to look at partnerships, regarding some things. One of the issues that we continue to face across the higher education space is the issue of student engagement. How do you engage your students? And one of the things that you spoke of just now is that students don't do optional, right?
Right.
And in our particular case, most of our developmental activities are delivered as co-curricular activities and are not compulsory, right? Or they are not curricular activities. Like, for example, you deliver you have a first year seminar, so a University 101. Many institutions in the States have it as a University 101 course, or students here are already stretched with the number of what we call UC courses, really, right? That they have to do. Just wanted to engage a bit about the concept of student don't do optional, and whether or not there is proposal to do everything curricular, because then, you know, it really takes away from what we see as the beyond the classroom, you know, learning experiences that generally obtains in the higher education space for student services and development. So, you know, just ask if you want to expand a little bit on that, you know, your concept that students don't do that which is optional.
Right. So they don't do optional, but at the same time, they're malleable. The minds are malleable, and you have students, upper class students, graduates, you know, alums who have experience and can give back. I think in that first year, it's a very important stage in setting the tone and expectations. In terms of the inescapable piece that I spoke about, so for instance, even if you don't have necessarily a common first year seminar like we do, I think what you set as required versus not is very key, and whom says it. So if you have a lot of these experiences that you want students to have, what is the value gained from them doing it? Now, you heard me mention micro-credentials. You heard me mention, you may or may not have heard digital badging. In this day and age, students are looking for, what am I gaining from it? And what's the value added? And if your goal is to attend the University of West Indies and eventually enter into the workforce, how are students being informed that these are the skills that are needed and this is how you get it? We know that when you apply for the job, you need a degree. You say, I have a bachelor's from University of West Indies. But when it also says you also need to have these skill sets, how are students gaining that? If you can articulate that these experiences, which you're going to embed somewhere, is the avenue to gaining that, then you might have more of a perked up ear with that. You also then go back to what I described as the culture of care, where it's the community, it's the faculty members really instilling, like, here are the things that you need to do. If it's one thing I know is I had to listen to my mentor. That person may not have said something I like, but I know it's what I needed. And so when you have someone that can guide the individual, when they're thinking about, I don't have to do this, those are the individuals that will get them back on track. And I know I'm oversimplifying it in like 30 seconds, but trust and believe, I think if we have those one-on-one conversations, we can do small little things that will eventually show, kind of demonstrate whether or not that approach will work. Because guess what? It's okay to fail. But if you don't try something different, I can guarantee you that your current process will only get you your current outcomes.
Right. So certainly, and I look forward to, you know, the one-on-one. Just wanted to, you know, to tap into that, you know, a kind of part B of this really. How do you ensure that students come to the student affairs professionals to get those things that they really do need, as opposed to thinking, okay, I can Google and find this. You know, I can self-serve, you know, for these critical competencies and skills that are necessary for survival and the global marketplace.
And that goes back, I'm going to keep going back to the inescapable engagement opportunities. It has to be something that's baked in and something that's marketed in a way that the students don't view it as an optional, even though it might be optional for all intensive purposes. I think the staff or the student affairs folks with lecturers, I don't know what types of collaboration happens. Do students see the student affairs folks very separate from lecturers? I don't know, but those things may offer insights to an opportunity to partner. And so when you start seeing both sides of the house or both hands working together, it starts to impact the students different in how they view, whether it's a staff from your area or a lecturer from the chemistry department. So I think there are ways in which you can be very strategic and pragmatic in the types of services and who are behind these services.
And one final one, if I may, Dr. Gallimore. You're breaking up, but I take that as a yes. So Dr. Williams, you spoke about the partnerships and the fact that we really are not to be operated in silos, right? One of the big challenges that we face institutionally is really just the funding of higher education across the region, right? Just try to find out, what connections are there between, say, your Office of Student Financing and, and the support that is given to students who may be challenged to complete, if you're talking about throughput or retention, owing to financial challenges, because that is a reality for us here in the Caribbean, in particular here at the University of the West Indies. Is there, a direct connection between your office and the space that deals with funding for students who may have challenges in that regard?
Yes, so you heard me, you may have seen the retention specialist. So that arm, those folks report to someone who reports to me. They work directly with doing outreach for students who are not enrolled. So when your registration period comes up and you see students who are not re-enrolling, they will work directly with what we call the student business services. And the relationship we have is, listen, our goal is to help students remove the barriers that exist. We recognize that not all barriers we can remove. We know that we can't help everyone the way we would love to, but where we can find mechanisms or loopholes, legal loopholes, that is, or methods to help students, we will. And so the partnership is one in which my folks will do a lot of the outreach. These are individuals who are generally recent grads, so they speak the language of our students. They have that, and that is key because, I'm not old, but even my kids look at me as this old guy. And so I think having folks that really understand the population, the terminologies, what will grab their attention is key. And so that area, those group of staff members work closely with our business, or would be the bursar office, to say, look, when we're doing outreach to students, what are options if students are in this category, meaning they owe between this amount and that amount? And it might be something where it's case by case. But the thing is, if we did not do outreach to those students and have kind of that relationship piece where we're saying, look, we recognize that you're not re-enrolled. Are there anything that we can do to help? And if that student is saying, look, I have this situation regarding finances, then that individual is going to close the loop by connecting with that business service office. Because again, the business service office cannot sustain calling however many students might not have re-enrolled and have a bill. But because I have those folks in my arm, I'm partnering with them. And so in that experience there, we're learning a lot of things. My staff is learning all the nuances connected to why the student isn't re-enrolled, which might not be just finances. It might be other things, academics, or, maybe some other personal issues. But then the financial side, they're recognizing that, yes, you could pay or help, but the student also has some academic difficulties. And so I think that shared governance across the aisle allows for folks to have understanding, which again goes back to the siloed approach and trying to break that. But you have to have cross-collaboration partnerships, even if it's two areas working together on one initiative.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, Dr. McKnight, you had your hand up. Have you taken it down?
Morning, everybody. Afternoon, rather. Yeah, I was taking it down because I have to run. I have some students coming at 12:30. But so there may be some follow-up. Just wanted to endorse a lot of what was said. Duane, great presentation. And I just want to endorse the need for the storytelling and putting ourselves in the same, vein as the students, so they don't see us on stage as some brilliant geniuses that just popped up. That really helps. And I also want to endorse that those students don't do optional. I find that they will see optional as mandatory if they see the value of it. And if we present it in such a way that they see that this is part of the training, and those attributes that you listed at the front are not going to come in the lecture halls necessarily. So if they're involved in co-curricular activities, it's to help their leadership, their communication skills, and all of those things come as part of our package of the UE graduate. And I think that we also need to spend a little bit more time gathering data. You know, the university tends not to be strong enough in terms of data gathering. For example, we put that we want them to be great critical thinkers. How do we know that we're achieving this? To what extent are our exam questions aligned so that they're testing the highest skills? You know, things like that. How do we ensure that the package that leaves the university is a package that we want to leave and to represent us? Some years ago, I decided to administer critical thinking skills test to those coming in and those going out. And the results were very interesting. And I think that's what I mean, you know, that they don't just become critical thinkers overnight. And if one course is push and another course is just telling them about a describe and a recall, we're not going to get them to that level. So I think sometimes before we put interventions in place, we have to have the data to drive exactly what is needed rather than what we think is needed. Many times we put initiatives in place based on what we think rather than what the market is asking for or what the students are asking for. So there's a lot to be done, and also some policies where we're still steeped in the traditions. Our students are taking 5 years to graduate, yet our degree program still stays at 3 years. Maybe we need to think about 4 years, because 3 years is just not enough time to achieve all of what we list that we want to achieve based on where they come in. We want them to be able to adapt to university life. We want them to be able to build relationships. We want them to be able to do all of that in 3 years. But each time I suggest, maybe it's time to shift officially to 4 years and give them more time. You'll hear, oh, the university government, I'm going to fund the university, you know, that sort of thing, because once upon a time, we had 3 years and blah, 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 blah. So I think it requires a whole cultural shift, and we really need to be looking at the challenges that we're having. Students are not performing very well, and the product that is coming out now still needs some more gelling, and I think some serious soul searching and frank conversations are necessary, where we really speak our mind and we also have data to drive whatever we put in place, and whatever we put in. So we don't put we just put an initiative in place and say, okay, we're going to spend 10 million on it, and then no KPIs aligned with that. You know, so you don't know what are you looking for, how are you going to assess that this was something that was valuable. We have a research day for years. What's the value of research day? I've been asking that for years. Have we assessed if this is something that was necessary and has met what we wanted it to meet? So these are some of the things that I think we have to have as a practice to be able to make the sort of changes to student success, student learning, and to ensure that the next generations really build on ours.
Well said, Dr. McKnight. I don't even have to respond. Well said.
Dr. Tomlin, I just saw. Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Gallimore. So let me say thanks to Dr. Gallimore for the invitation to attend this seminar today. Dr. Williams, thank you so much for a very inspiring talk. And I want to say too that we are very much moving in the direction of enhancing our student success programs here on the campus. We have, Dr. Singh Wilmot said, we have a lot of stuff going on already. We have a lot of committed people. I think this chemistry series here with this seminar is showing that this is on our agenda. But I want to say that that our strategic plan, you talked about the strategic plan. One of the strategic objectives under the access pillar speaks about enhancing teaching, learning, and student development through the voice of the students. So we're taking that seriously. This administration, the campus administration, is pushing forward on that objective. And within that, within the Office of the Deputy Principal, where I am currently serving, establishing the structure and the framework to be strategic and deliberate about student success. So there is a framework that we'll be sharing fairly soon with the academic board, with our colleagues. I've been meeting with the deputy deans for student success and colleagues in OSSD or resident advisors and so on. And the idea too is really what we're building is a data-driven ecosystem approach, an ecosystemic approach, being holistic. Every single agency or unit that is on the campus has a role to play in terms of student success. From our estate management division to our academic centers, OSSD, of course, is critical. That's Jason McKenzie's operation. And we want to bridge those gaps. We want to bring forward those units together so we can all be talking the same language. So when I heard you speak, you made those points very well in your talk. Those are very much where we are heading, and we look forward to collaboration, working with institutions like yours and your work to forwarding this agenda as we go forward. So thank you so much for the inspiration today, this morning. And thanks again to the department and for the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We don't get Dr. Paul down here very often. And Dr. Williams, you are not the guy who are giving us this opportunity. Can I please?
I can't see. It can't, okay, all right.
In that framework, because one of the things I find people here at UA very well, we reinvent the wheel. So there are a lot of data already collected on, for instance, the first year experience program, when it was running, when it was just designed and being executed. We have a lot of data from Dr. McKnight's peer-led learning initiative, and data were collected, but we haven't acted on what the data were saying. So are we planning to study the data and go from there, or are we in a reinvention?
No. Well, I mean, I know we have. No, absolutely, Dr. Singwell. We are, as I said, this is a big part of the framework that we're looking at is to be data-driven. I heard we talked about getting analytics on student progression, student engagement. We're going to be working with Mitz and the team on that. But the more I walk around and talk to persons, I'm learning about what we're doing. So I learned about the peer education program just before coming to this workshop actually, and then Prof. Dr. Minor Cates was telling me more about it. But absolutely, yes, we have to look at what we have done before. We're not reinventing the wheel. Jason will tell you, we are talking about the first year education program, the stuff. OSSD has been doing a lot of work. There's a lot of studies, data there that we need to take to the table and work on. And the strategy also would be, it's not just saying something from my office happening. We are going to bring this into all the levels of the academy. So our deputy for student success will be, there's an expectation in terms of accountability for some of the KPIs that we are building in the program and the initiative. And we're doing that collaboratively. So I think
Awesome. Okay, well, I think that just leaves me to tell you, thank you so much, Dr. Williams, for joining us. We really learned a lot, and it was a lot of food for thought. And implement so that our really do come on better than they came. You spoke about the FYE, a 3-credit course, that's will be obligatory in your context. Maybe that's something that we should consider as well. All right, so thank you all in the room, all of you online for coming out. Have yourself a wonderful rest of the afternoon.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Very nice.